the submarine that nearly started World War III. The year was 1959, and the Cold War was at its sharpest edge. The world was divided. America and the Soviet Union glared at each other across oceans and continents, their fingers resting uneasily on the nuclear trigger. Far below the surface of the Adriatic Sea, an old Soviet submarine named S-360 silently patrolled the dark waters near the Albanian coast. At that time, Albania, small but fiercely loyal to Moscow, had given the Soviets a secret base in Vlora, one of the most strategic points in the Mediterranean. On a humid summer morning, deep inside that submarine, the radar suddenly came alive. A large formation of ships was approaching from the west. The sonar officer froze. The profile was unmistakable, a U.S. Navy cruiser escorted by destroyers. Moments later, a coded message reached the commander. Greater than. American fleet confirmed. The flagship may be carrying President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The submarine's captain, a man in his 40s hardened by war, stared at the glowing map. If that information was true, the President of the United States was only a few nautical miles away, within torpedo range. Above the surface, the Mediterranean sun glittered on the decks of the USS Des Moines, the pride of the U.S. Navy. On board, Eisenhower was midway through a goodwill tour. A gesture of peace meant to calm a world on edge. But peace was a fragile thing. Back below, alarms sounded quietly. The Soviet officers whispered, "Orders." The captain hesitated. He knew the protocol. If the U.S. ships entered what Moscow considered a restricted zone, he was to lock torpedo tubes and prepare to fire. He ordered the periscope raised. Through the trembling lens, he saw the shadow of the cruiser glide across the horizon. The sea was calm, terrifyingly calm. For a few seconds, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, on the surface, the U.S. escort destroyers detected something, a periscope, barely breaking the water. Klaxons blared. Depth charges were armed. American sailors scrambled to stations. For the first time, a U.S. president's life might have been in the crosshairs of an unseen enemy. But just as quickly as it appeared, the periscope vanished beneath the waves. The Soviet submarine dove deep and crept away into the darkness. No shots were fired. No one on either side wanted to be remembered as the man who started World War III. For decades, the story remained buried in Cold War secrecy, whispered among naval veterans, half denied by Moscow, ignored by Washington. Some say the captain disobeyed direct orders to